morning, everyone. How is everyone doing this morning? If this is your first time here, hi, my name is Carrington. Not your first time here, hi, welcome back. You enjoy any and all things makeup, definitely go ahead, hit that subscribe button, click the little bell to be notified of all my future uploads, and let's dive into today's video. So I had a wonderful subscriber in my comments named Dawn who had gotten the Of Quartz palette, and I had just picked this up during 21 Days of Beauty. This wasn't on sale, this wasn't like part of it, but I just did a little bit of shopping. You know, each day I would just go see like things that were on sale or just like maybe things I might be interested in purchasing. This was definitely one of them. So here is the packaging. I think the packaging is beautiful. You have the shade names on the back. I love just like the like how like the reflective like the letters are like when it hits the light, and then of course you have all the quartz around, and then when you open up the palette you have this. This is absolutely stunning. Like, I am looking at this and I'm just like, I'm in love. Like, I cannot wait to play in this. This is absolutely beautiful. So we are definitely going to be like creating a look. We're going to go over some swatches. So if you guys are excited to see what look I create, how well I like this palette, swatches, then definitely keep on watching. Here are the swatches. So let's go ahead, let's dive on into the swatches. So first up we have Mind Games. This next swatch is really hard to see. It's definitely very light. It's SJO. Last one for the first row is In the Zone. Moving on to the second row, we have Transorium. Next up we have Ore. Then we have Magmatic. For the last row we have Granite Access, Opaque, and finally Rock On. I will say I feel like some of these mattes like probably didn't like perform, I would say, like the best. Of course, like swatches like the Viseart purple palette, swatches, I mean that swatch is awful, but it's seriously like such a good purple palette. So yeah, swatches don't always tell the whole story, but I am really excited to go ahead and dive on into this palette. So first off, I'm going to attempt, I don't know how well this is going to go, but I'm going to attempt to dip into the shade SJO. This is kind of what I would like for like my transition. So I'm really going to coat up my brush with it. No kick up or anything like that. It is taking a little bit to coat up my brush though. This is definitely like a very light gray kind of a color. Not terrible, but it's definitely one that I'm going to have to for sure work on building up that color. It's kind of disappointing that in the pan, like, this is such like a beautiful gray, but it's just not like, it's not showing up as good as I was hoping. So although this one didn't swatch very good, it's also not performing the best either. But if you're somebody that's afraid of gray or color, I think having something like this where you can build it up instead of it just being intense upon first dunk, I think that would be a fantastic option for you. So, starting to build up now. Alright guys, so tell me how your guys' week was. Like, was it a good week? Was it a bad week? Was it just like an okay week? Like, I know all that down below. Like, how was your week? I will say today I'm a little bit nervous. I'm having an ultrasound today. No, I'm not pregnant. That bridge has, I've got two wonderful kids. I've got a boy and a girl. That bridge has passed. I do not want any more kids. But so I started taking a new birth control, because when I do have my cycles, which is, you know, usually tries to be monthly, but I have PCOS as well, so it's really off. So I'm on the birth control to help kind of regulate it. And because like I'm losing a lot of hair, sometimes that can be related to PCOS, and so having birth control can help kind of save and restore your hair. Fun fact, if you didn't know that and you have PCOS and are losing hair, might be an option for you. They were like, okay, you know, let's try to see if maybe we can do like a period once every like 3 to 4 months. And I was like, okay. So basically I was just going to take the birth control that I had at a little bit of a higher strength. And I was going to take it for 3 weeks, toss out the placebo pills, and just start another pack. And I do that for about 3 to 4 months, and then we would just, let myself have a period and then get back on it. So the first month that I was on it, it was fine. It was perfect. I literally had no issues. It was great. It was fantastic. All right, next up, I'm going to go into the shade right here called In the Zone. Yeah, a little bit down, a little bit. So I was like, great. Like, this is perfect. Like, love it. So about halfway into my first week of my second pack, I started lightly spotting. And I was like, okay, well, maybe it's just like my body's just, trying to get used to like the new birth control. He said that could happen. So that happened from like Wednesday, and finally on Monday of the following week, it started just getting a little bit heavier. And so, he did say like, if that's the case, like just like stop the birth control for about a week, let yourself have your period. And then, just, start it again. Okay. So I was like, okay. So I, stopped it for 2 weeks because it was just so heavy and just like kept coming. So finally, after about 2 weeks, that Sunday, I started my birth control again. And at this point, it didn't make it go away, but it did help it lighten up, but it was definitely still there. It was like as if you were on your period. It was like the very, very like beginning or end when it's like very, very light. And so like that, I was like, okay, maybe it just needs it a little bit. So at this point, it's already been about 3 weeks of this. I had let this go on for another 2 weeks. And last week, I called my doctor's office. And I was like, hey, like I've been having this period now for 5 weeks now. Is there anything we can do? So they were like, well, let me give your message to the nurse and she'll call you back. So the nurse did, go ahead, call me back. And she was like, well, what have you been doing? So I gave her the whole entire spiel of everything I've been doing, the amount of time that I've stopped it, stuff like that. And she's like, okay. So you've already done what we would have recommended, which is basically telling you to stop. And we probably would have only have told you to stop for a week, but you stopped for 2 weeks and it's still going on. Okay, let me see what the doctor wants to do. So they didn't get back to me until the next day, which is fine because he's an OBGYN and there's babies and surgeries and other things. Like, it's not a big deal that I had to wait a whole day. I wasn't dying. So they called back and they were like, yeah, we need to schedule you like for an emergent ultrasound. We can't get you until probably next week. What days work for you? And I said Monday, Tuesday, or Friday. They said, well, Monday we're already pretty booked up, and so is ultrasound. They were like, Tuesday's his surgery day. They're like, well, he's open all day on Wednesday or Thursday. And I was like, yeah, I've got like meetings galore. I've got small groups. Like, I just have like a lot of things. Like, there's no way I'd be able to make it in. And they're like, well, we do have some openings on Friday. So that's today. You're seeing this next week. So I was just like, okay, not a big deal. All right, I'm then going to go dive on into granite access. I'm going to focus that really low in the crease and like starting on like the outer corner part. So I said, okay, so I've got it scheduled for today at 11. And then I have to meet with my doctor after to talk about, what the results are. They want to make sure that like there's nothing going on internally, cysts or whatever, that would be causing this. If it's just hormonal, then they might be able to like prescribe like another birth control. But if not, then, we have to see what it is and what our next steps are. I will say though, my mom, my grandma, my aunt, my great aunt have all had to have hysterectomies pretty early on in life, due to like having, like my mom had like a really early stage cervical cancer, so they just did a hysterectomy, so that took care of everything. My grandmother had cancer of the uterus, I think, or ovary. So it wasn't the cervix. It was sort of like it was one of those two. So she had to have a hysterectomy. She, of course, did have to have like chemo and radiation. My great aunt had breast cancer and cervical cancer that she passed away from. So yeah, I definitely have some like family issues in that way. So, you know, I'm a little bit nervous about it. I did have my checkup, oh gosh, in November maybe. You know, my pap smear and all that, and everything, you know, everything came back pretty good. Good, like no cancer or anything. So, like, that's positive, but, you know, it's still just, like, nerve-wracking that you have to go do this. So, I'm really nervous to see what the results are. I may have to update you, like, in a later video. Really providing, like, any more depth or anything. I feel like it's just, like, exactly the same. I don't know. That's just my opinion. So, for the outer corner, I'm going to go into the shade right here called Opaque. This is also going to need just a tad bit of building up. This is definitely like starting to become like really deep and smoky, but I did want to use as many of these colors as I could. I am starting to get some fallout on the face. Not a whole lot of kick up in like the pans, but I am noticing it's not even like a lot. It's like really just like a slight amount of fallout. But so I don't have my glitter glue. And so here's the part where I'm like, what do I want to do? I want to try to get the most use. So let's go to Magnetic. And we will take that first. And we will just kind of take that onto the like middle and center. Okay. It's not coming off of my finger super well. Like it picks up perfectly fine. But like in terms of like coming onto the lid, not the best. I'll probably just have to sit here and just kind of layer it. Yeah, I don't know. This shade's probably not my favorite, truthfully. Okay. No. Alright. So let's try another shade. Let's go into the shade. Let's do like Transform. This one right here. This feels much softer than the other one, so maybe this one will be a little bit more promising. This one is much more promising, so let's kind of swipe that all over the lid. Yeah. Yeah. Just that shade's good. So the Transform shade, love that. I'm going to take a little bit more of that. Just start swiping it all over the lid just to add a little bit more of that metallicness, but like I think that looks bad. That was pretty good. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go finish off my eyes, or no, finish off my other eye, which is just the shimmer, do the rest of my face, come back so we can kind of get like a little bit more of like a first impression of this palette. All right, so I'm back. Here is the final look. What do you guys think? I was so busy just like listening to a true crime story that I forgot to come back on to do my lower lash line. But I will say I did take this and added it as a liner to my top. I took this and put it very closely to the lash line. I mixed these two shades right here and kind of smoked it out, and then I used that for the inner corner. So that's what I did. Here is the rest of the final look. What do you guys think? Do you love it? Do you not love it? Let me know. Dawn, I definitely want to know your opinions on what you think. Is this like a look you would try, you would not try? Let me know all that down below. Let's go ahead and let's dive on into my final thoughts of this whole entire palette. I know this came out a while ago, and it's at Ulta, which is where I picked it up. I do love like the packaging, like the crystals, the stones. I am 100% into like crystals and things like that. So I really do appreciate that. In terms of the shades, I'm going to kind of talk about these shades a little bit. I have something to say about like each one. So first and foremost, this shade right here is pretty. It's beautiful. It is, however, just a little bit more powdery than I was like expecting. There we go. I want to amp it up a little bit. See if I can. Yeah, there we go. It was just kind of a little bit powdery compared to maybe like some of the other shimmers or some of the other shades. But I don't think it's a bad shade. Like using your finger, you can definitely amplify it. You amplify it up. I think it looks really good. This shade right here, SJO. That took a lot of like building and things like that, which I don't mind. I don't mind sometimes having to build up my shades, especially when it's maybe colors that you're not really used to. I think that can be very beneficial. So that way you can kind of see, you know, like, okay, I built up one layer, not enough, not enough. I could use a little bit more and then just build it up. So I do appreciate that aspect. So I'm not mad about that at all. If you're somebody that wants immediate and intense pigment, this is not going to be that shade for you. Honestly, it's probably not going to be that palette for you. We're going to be truthfully honest. In the shade, in the zone, that was a decent shade. I got it to show up pretty well. Again, did take some building, but I'm okay with that with this palette. This shade right here, this Magmatic, I was actually really disappointed in this shade. I really could not get it to show up. You know, I was trying to layer it, and it just felt just like very topperish, which is odd because when you swatch it, it looks like it's going to be like really beautiful, but on the eyes, when I was just trying to tap it onto the eyes, like it just wasn't wanting to leave my finger. I don't know what the issue was with that at all, but wasn't in love with this. Did not use this shade, so I can't really speak on that. Oh, back to this Magmatic shade. I will say though, it does kind of feel like sandpapery in a way compared to like the other shimmers that we've done so far. It just kind of felt very sandpapery as well. This shade I did not get to use, but it looks very, very, very beautiful. I would love to use that shade again or at some point. So the shade right here called Transform, that was actually a really decent shade. I did have to layer it a couple of times. I layered it twice on camera. When I went to go finish up my eye look, I felt like I needed something more, so I layered it up an additional 2 times. So it was like 4 times total to get like this level of metallicness. So it's just something to be mindful of. You know, it does take some building up, but it's not terrible. I think it ended up looking very, very nice. Moving on to the last row, this shade I just didn't feel like did anything. I feel like maybe these two shades are just so a little bit too similar that when you build this one up, it almost just ends up looking like this. So I just felt like maybe these two were just a little bit too similar, so it doesn't matter which one you use. You can use one or the other and you're going to get the exact same effect. I don't feel like it added anything to my eye look. This shade right here, Opaque, I used that for the outer corner. That was a really good shade. Took me a couple of times to build it up, but I wasn't disappointed in it at all. Worked well. This Rock On shade is all right. It has glitter in it, and I'm just not a fan of shades of mattes with like glitter in it. And it feels like anytime Colourpop makes a black shade, they're making a black shade with glitter in it, and I just feel like we could do so much better than that. Like that's not something that we need. But I did use it on my lash line. It was nice. It was pigmented. Some of the glitter stayed, you know, after, you know, tapping it in, the glitters did fall away, which is fine, but I'm just like, if the glitters are just going to fall away anyways, just make a black matte, not a black with shimmers. So that's just kind of like my thoughts and opinions on this palette. You know, I would say if you can get this on sale, it's going to be a really great palette. If you can use points at Ulta, really great palette. If you order from from Colourpop and you can use a discount code, that would be worth it. I think it is like a very beautiful, nice gray palette. And I think this palette is going to be really good for those beginners with like grays or like dark smoky tones because it does require that building up. So I think that that is definitely like a plus for this palette. It's just that this is really good for beginners. If you're not a beginner, you don't want to have to waste your time building up. You're probably going to want to skip over this. There are other gray toned palettes that are out there that are really good. Trying to think if I can think of any off the top of my head. The Colourpop Blow and Smoke. That is a great gray tone palette that really has some pigmentation to it. There is the Natasha Denona Xenon palette. Give Me Glow has lots of singles, so you could definitely like create this palette with those singles, and those are definitely going to have more punches to it. So there are lots of other palettes out there that you can get, you know, that punch that you need, but it's definitely just not going to be this one. Alright, so that is it for today's video. I hope that you all enjoyed. If you did, then you're definitely going to want to give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye!